I'm going to get Twitch open.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Monday Night Roundup here on Blood Bowl Live, your one-stop shop for all of the last week's action from the ADBBL. I'm joined once again by the wonderful Mr. Tom Hovell. Tom, hello.
Good evening. How you doing?
And back from his brief week off last week, it's not Dave Rue, it is Scott Scott Bryant. Scott, welcome for joining. Welcome back once again.
Cheers, Chris. Cheers, evening sports fans. Good to be back. I'd like to think that you did miss me, but the fact that I've been demoted to last in the call out says it all, really. And obviously, Dave is just setting standards of entertainment and professionalism that I can never hope to achieve. So well done. Thank you, Dave. Anyway.
I normally go alphabetically, but I felt I needed to go in order of most to least attendance, so I thought I'd change the order. Well, actually, that means actually I should have put Tom first, and I should have been second because I've missed one.
We didn't register. That's very kind.
Well, we have got 17 games, hopefully, to get through this week. We are definitely going to get through to the Hellions versus the Pustards. We might do the games from today. We're going to see how we're doing for time because we've got an awful lot to get through. So we'll be flying through the games from this week. Get involved in the chat, say hello, and tell us what you think of the games that happened this week. The one game that I will quickly shout out, which we're not covering today, was the 4-3 victory for Team Blue versus Team Rest of World in the Advice of Dragons kickabout yesterday. I'm sat down in a chair and I can't stand up. That's because of the kickabout. My legs don't work anymore. But thank you for everyone for coming along to that, and anyone who didn't, if you're interested next time, let someone know because it was good fun and it was a very close game. But well done to Team Blue for winning that. Anyway, we're going to dive straight in. Me finding the games, because we've had so many games this week, they're not so easy for me to get to on Tour Play. So I'm going to be doing a bit of faffing around to find them. First, we are going to match day 2, and we are scrolling down to the Flamingos versus Dead Star Belgrave. Dave was with us last week. He was hoping that secret weapons and chainsaws and bombs and anything else wouldn't have too much of an impact on this game. It was a bashy game. You've got 4 casualties for Dead Star. You've got 3 casualties for the Flamingos. So both taking a point away from this one. And it was exactly, for a team as bashy as Shambling Undead can be, it was probably what we sort of expected here. You had casualties early on from the mummy there, fouls coming in from the goblins, relatively early touchdown to take the lead for Dead Star, and then Fungus gets a casualty. You get more fouls. You get another casualty for Fungus. You get more fouls before Dead Star managed to take a 2-0 lead. Secret weapons look like they stayed on for quite a while here. Fungus was on till about turn 16, which is pretty good. And a consolidation touchdown came right near the end there for the Flamingos to take away the clean sheet point from Dave. Scott, the Goblins have done well this season, exactly as they left last season. But there's a lot of strength in that Shambling Undead team. So maybe not a surprise that they came out on top in the end.
No. But just before we talk about the actual match, just call out to Mr. Scott Norman in the chat, watching love from the shower. We don't have many standards in there, Scott, but we do need to keep a minimum level so we don't get this broadcast prohibited in the future. But good luck and enjoy yourself. That's all I'd say out for you there. It was a very good match. We know Dave. He's redrafted this team. He knows it inside out. 18 SPP, and he's got all those casualties, 6 as well in terms of the Flamingos. We know that the Goblins, they're in and out. Just looked like it, without knowing the detail behind this, it just looked like if you were to do this before the match and say, give us your score and predictions on paper against this much bashiness, 2-1 and 18 versus 9 SPP, 6 casualties, is probably not far off from what you'd expect as well.
Yeah, I think probably what you would have thought on paper. Tom, it sounds like Regen played a pretty key role here, because it looks like two successful regen rolls on the Mummies. So that could have been pretty damning for Dave's season had they gone.
Absolutely, yes. But I've got a question in regards to the Fnatic, which is now down from agility. Is that going to be a problem for that Fnatic? So, quite a reason being is obviously they're randomly moving around. If they go next to someone and then go in the opposite direction, do they have to do a dodge?
Ooh, do Fanatics have to dodge out if they roll to... Now, I feel like I maybe even read something today. No, they don't. So they don't have to dodge out. I do feel like I read something today that talked about the Fnatic, and it sounds like no. So that's pretty good. I mean, I guess that means you probably don't really mind the edge bust, do you?
No, it's irrelevant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because what are you going to use agility for with a Fnatic? Anyway, just a thought.
Bribes coming in, Bomber. I mean, Bomber, Scott doesn't use Bomber too often, but Bomber coming in on this one. Fungus the Loon coming in as well, using all of those weapons and keeping the players on for quite a long time there, which is pretty good. Dave will be happy with this result. And the start that Scott's come sort of has had this season probably means he's possibly not too worried about a loss in this one. Kept some key players there, and not lost anybody too important, I guess. Gentlemen, any final thoughts on this game before we fly straight on to the next one?
No, I think that's all nice, easy. We've got lots to do. Both of them sitting pretty at the top of Ikelia. I think so Scott, as you said, continuing a fine rich of a vein of form. And Dave, we all know, is very difficult. Not going to say anything more in terms of the rest of the group until we come on to those shortly. But again, it's looking very interesting. This match, though, not going to really influence the overall picture of the group, or is it? Is Harrison going to make me eat my words? We'll come back to that.
He might do. We'll see that game a bit later on, hopefully. But next up, we're going to the first game of the season for a previous champion, the fourth season for the Riotous Rams, fourth consecutive season that they've been in here, and a 3-1 win against the Gnomes. This one was on the stream, quite an entertaining one to watch if you want to go in. I guess, Tom, looking at that casualty count even, fantastic, exactly what we expected probably of the Rams against a squishy team.
Absolutely, yeah. It was casualty galore on this side of things. Badly hurts everywhere for those linemen, beastmen, and even the Fox got a look in on that side of things. But as far as I can tell, not too bad. I think they got a couple of badly hurts, but they got away lightly on it. There's no lasting injuries or anything along those lines. So I think they got away lucky, I think, to be brutally honest. And good old Sappy becoming MVP again. This is the superstar treatment coming up through the ranks.
Yeah, that tree is getting some interesting skills here. Scott, what are your thoughts on this one?
I love this match. I was traveling back through Belfast International Airport. Other airports are available. And just loving this and the enjoyment that both coaches, Dave and Rich, brought to the game as well. It was a good thing. Now, we actually placed a little side bet on this as well in terms of how many casualties did we think. Chris, you went ridiculously low with 3 in terms of the overall casualties. I called it at 6, and I thought that was being optimistic. But as soon as Nani hit the pitch, outstanding. Nani is the real GOAT. We've bigged up this potential clash, Nani versus Wart, in terms of who is the GOAT of all time. But Nani was phenomenal. Cash on turn 1, Cash on turn 2, really going for it. And it just was such an entertaining match to watch. If you do, as Chris said, guys, get the chance, go watch it on stream. And you just said both coaches were enjoying it. I felt at one point Rich was almost a bit apologetic for absolutely wiping all of the Gnomes off the pitch. However, at 2-0 down, everybody thought, oh, here we go. What's going on? It's just going to be business as usual for the Riotous Rams. And then we had something rather interesting. We had a one-turn touch. Sorry, my apologies. It was 1-1, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Then we
it
had
was
my
1-0,
apologies.
1-0, and we had
It
the
was 1-0,
one-turner.
and then we had the one-turn touchdown. Which everybody sort of looked at from their phone, thinking, "Is that another dead gnome?" Nope, it's a one-turn touchdown. But Rich, in terms of the strength he is as a coach, he's really come through there. Nanny and his beastmen just almost looking at the gnomes to say, "Just get off my pitch." So it was, I think for Rich, great opening match there, and just again a really good coaching. So again, if you want to see how to play Chaos Chosen, go and watch how Rich does it.
Equally, if you want to see the one-turn touchdown, it's been marked within the comments on the YouTube.
Gosh, we're good, aren't we? Oh, professional.
It's one of two times we're going to see Cindy this week doing a good job there. Unfortunate, there was the unfortunate situation where Dave was forced to put Helmet on the pitch for effectively one turn because he needed to put him on the pitch, got his one-turn touchdown, and then Helmet was immediately sent off. So managed to kind of hold him off, didn't put him on, and then Helmet did nothing, which is always a bit of unfortunate. But Rich did very well in this game, and it sounds like they had a sort of entertaining game between the two of them. And yeah, very impressive to see Nanny doing exactly what we know Nanny can do. But to be fair to these gnomes, not sort of just lying down, 3 casualties themselves, 14 SPP taking away from this match, got a completion in there on the ever improving tree man who we'll look at some point. So not taking this result lying down by any means. So
well lying down, but they've got wrestle, so they're permanently on the floor.
That's a good point, actually.
Tom Hobble, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Hobble. Take a bow, sir. You've been saving that all week, haven't you? Really?
Yeah, you can catch Tom's Netflix stand-up special coming in July, direct to Netflix. Well done to both of these coaches. A great game and a great one to watch. So yeah, go back to watch that one.
Last thing, just the last thing on this, Chris, because it is such a good match. Just everybody be aware: Nanny 29 SPP, 3 more to go for the next skill. Is Rich going to take it, or is he going to go for a stat bust? Can you imagine strength for Nanny? Strength for Nanny. How lovely would that be?
Next game we are going to go to then. We are, I believe we are this one here. Here we go. First of two sibling battles coming to you this week, and it was James and Robert, OTFC versus Graveyard Groovers. Both these coaches got off to a great start with victories over John's Vampire team. So this was a very much top of the table clash in this group, and both coaches, really giving it all here. But it was sort of quite apparent from relatively early on that Robert was doing something that Robert does very well, and I've been on the receiving end of Robert do very well, and that is he was prepared to bash his way through this game by any means necessary, and that he absolutely did. A good 4 casualties from this one. Scott, another shambling undead team. Both shambling teams are doing quite well this season. It's a good run for the mummies.
It seems to be a good run for the Shamblings, definitely, Chris. We're looking at, what was, as you said, this was a real slugfest. Even, the ogres are in there. Noblar's getting sent off as well. The line, lots of good fouling to see as well. Lots of casualties. Mummies taking out ogres, so this was a real slogfest for the people. Close game, as we expected. Both coaches doing well. It's been an interesting when we come back, look at the division later on, how it's going to go. So, I think it was a really, really good result for Robert. It set him up really, really well. And, it was a great, if you're going to get a 1-0 win, get the extra points as well for the cash. And he did it. He did it very well indeed. And he looks like he's just setting these Shambling Undead up for a really good run at as well. Because at the moment, he's only got 3 extra skills on these players. So just shows how good he's playing it as well in terms of the team. So
Yeah, and I agree with Twitch chat. You know, Robert's bash game is very strong. We know he likes to or prefers a bashier team. I think he was had a bit of an unfortunate run with the Goblins in last season, but he's now back into true form by the looks of things.
Yeah, I think Robert could go somewhat under the radar this season. In a tough group, he's got 2 good wins against 2 good opponents, and he's also Robert's been in this league for a long time, and he's playing up against other people who have been in this league for a long time, who he has played before, and who know how he plays, and he's getting good results, and he's just sort of there. We're talking about Wart. We're talking about Old World Alliance teams. We're talking about Nanny. We're not talking about Robert too much, and he's just sort of hovering there with some good, getting some good performances in and getting some good skills on. So I think he could be a bit of a dark horse. I think I did have him high in my predictions. I think, but I'm not sure.
we need to go to our stat man. Have you got the predictions up there? We can't have any false news. This is a channel of the utmost integrity. So, Tom, what do we put down on the Witterins?
But let's have a look. Let's have a look. Chris, yes, you put him down. Him and James through. Scott was Robert and John, and myself was John and James in that division in this squig.
Interesting. I think he could go. I think he could go far here, and I think he's one to watch, but we haven't talked about him much yet. But one to watch definitely. Some good skills as well. On he's sort of being relatively patient. A white blitzer with tackle, ghoul runner with block there, and random dauntless on a zombie lineman, which I imagine will come in helpful in the replay against the vampires. It could come in helpful, and in the replay against ogres, Dauntless is going to be pretty handy.
Very,
yeah.
Lovely. Well, well done to Robert for winning game 1 of their sibling rivalry. He did better than me, who didn't manage to win any of my sibling rivalry games, but we'll get onto that one later. First, we are going to go to match day 4. We're going to go to Flumps versus... It's not Flumps. I've written Flumps down because I just think it was easier than writing Flamingos in my little scribbled notepad that I've got on my screen. Flamingos versus Plague Brigade. And this one, I spoke to... this one was happening next to my game. And the Plague Brigade were... this was an improvement for them, even though it was a loss. The first game between these two was a 4-1 loss, so 2-1 was a better result. And I think he was actually happy that there is that, like, he's seeing improvement as the season goes on, and he's coming out of this game as well with more SPP than the Goblins, 2 casualties there, and I think a few completions as well chucked in at the same time. Scott, you're our most recent Skaven coach that we've got on the chat on the show. Goblins pose a interesting threat to Skaven because the things that are going to hurt you in the Goblin team are really going to hurt you.
Without a doubt, for me, when you play Goblins, it's either you're going to run all over them or they're going to absolutely pound you into the ground. And if you look at what happened to the Skaven as well, it was a bit painful in there. So even if you're watching, fella, as much as we all love it when you see a gutter runner score, as as Luke did, to bring it back to 1-1, great start from the Goblins as always. Scott's really got motoring. It didn't get that many casual, if I remember watching the first couple of drives on this particular game. You got a lot of pushes, but then the foul started coming through. He started getting... Fungus did his job, then the fouls coming in. Then he's got the 1-0 touchdown. And despite Fungus going off, and then despite the gutter runners scoring, so they're coming back into it. And at that point, you thought it is, it's looking as if it's coming back there for the Rat. suddenly Bomber does his thing, gets a cash, then you get another niggling injury, then you get another one or two Skaven, and whilst you can score with gutter runners, if you haven't got the numbers as well, it can be very difficult, especially against goblins and their stuntiness that we all love as well. And if we just look at the actual, what's it, seven players next now. So if you are going to do this, there are 4 gutter runners. They're always going to be a fun one to watch. 65 gold pieces in the treasury. I think it's an improvement one. I think, kudos to Carl. It's a tough league he's in. Some very experienced coaches in there as well, and with a fresh Skaven. If you do get behind the ball, behind the curve in terms of upskilling them, you're always going to be on the back foot, and that's what we're seeing right here as well. On the positive, he's still got his 4 gutter runners. They always will pose a threat. He's got 1 with block. But from Scott's perspective, the Flamingos, good bounce back from the previous, results as well that we're seeing. So, yeah, my heart did go out to the Skaven on this one.
Tom, my count here is 11 fouls. I think just in
that's
this
quite
game.
a few.
Pretty good.
Yeah, you say there's 2 injuries, but he got away with it because one of those was actually on a journeyman, so that's quite fortunate on that side of things. But yeah, the fouls are coming in thick and fast. Literally, I think every turn or every other turn, if not. So yeah, clearly someone had it in for the Rats. And it's an interesting tactic that the Plague Brigade have got at the moment, because clearly they've got all the positionals still in their team, but they are now, as we've quite rightly said, that they're now down to like 7, or well, they've got 8 players, but the 1 player is going to miss next game. So all their linemen are going to be journeymen now. Is that play or not? We'll see how that pans out.
They got movement 7. They're all going to be 3 out. They're all going to be armor 8. So, and that's who you're sort of going for. And of course, in terms of skill sets, you can't, the dodge isn't going to work because they're all going to have loner. So it's going to be a very, very challenging one, but it is still very doable. 4 gutter runners, they can do it as well. Going back to the Flamingos, fouling for Britain, we absolutely love it. Filth, wonderful stuff. And from a coach's perspective, coming back from the 2-1 loss that we mentioned a few months ago earlier against the Shambling Undead for Dave Undead Style Belgrade, great result. And we'll come on to talk about the league later, and it puts Scott and the Flamingos in a very healthy position as well.
Just last in the chat from Scott on this game, he said it was a very hard fought game. Skaven did everything right, and the Goblins just had the numbers to be able to swarm it. So just being able to clear a few of those rats off and not having any subs just meant attrition just sort of caught up with them. But I think we'll see a Skaven win from this coach before the season's up, because he's doing what it's quite nice to see a lot of our new coaches doing, which is genuinely improving and learning and getting better game in, game out, and that's what we like to see. So the win will come there. I think it's just a matter of time, really. And
if he wants to borrow, I've got a rat ogre that is in need of a home. If he wants to borrow one, I always encourage the Skavens to do that.
That's very kind of you. I
know it is, but it's not all about me. It's all about Tom and his gags tonight. That's the theme of the show. So.
Well, speaking of jokes, here comes my game of the week. A4 Owlbears versus the Gilded Knights of Cerulean. 1-0 win for the Khorne team against the Old World Alliance. Scott, any questions?
How much is your therapist charging you at the moment then for your current streak? And is it money well spent?
I'm not on the best streak. I think it's relatively well known what I tried to do in this game by this point. But anyone who's watching who doesn't know,
tell them about the owlbear. Come on,
so
in all its glorious detail. It is on YouTube. Am I correct? And have we marked it for any aspiring owlbear coaches?
Phil did get the clip. So basically, Griff and Cindy dominated the first half. Cindy was taking out Khorne, stunning, knocking them down, knocking them out. eat comfortably in that first half, and sort of the Old World Alliance had the control. Absolutely, were in control. Griff was stood one step away from the end zone for about 4 turns, just waiting to go in. But I was very aware of the fact that the likelihood of me getting the top 2 in this group was 0. It wasn't going to happen. I was not going to get the points I needed from my 2 games. So would I rather win this game or draw this game and have Griff score a hat trick? Or would I rather possibly draw or lose this game and hand off to the owlbear, who then gets 3 SPP for the touchdown? Now, to me, this makes perfect sense that you try and give the ball to the owlbear. So I spent 4 turns slowly walking the owlbear down the field, into the end zone, used up re-rolls to do it, and then didn't roll high enough on my 4+ agility to hand the ball off, and went in halftime 0-0. And then in the second half, Phil had the better of me. He had I got the ball quite far down. I put pressure on when he failed a few pickups, but he had the blocks in the right places and got through to get the win. So I regret nothing.
And that's a beautiful thing to hear, Chris. Just want to know, you don't do things without a plan. So if you had got the 3 SPP for the owlbear and you had managed to skill up, maybe if he'd got player of the match or star player, what skill would you put on him next?
I'd randomize it, Scott.
Not sprint.
Sprint on the owlbear. Oh, not a bad shout.
See,
he has failed a few rushes, actually, so maybe sure feet, if that's an option. No, I'd have been happy to random it. I just would have liked another skill on him and see what it is.
And is that something you're gonna go for? Are you looking forward to going into the sort of the second tier of the knockout stages, or
yes,
have you just given? Yeah,
I am confirmed as being in that second tier, and we'll give it a good go. We'll try and pull some shenanigans off. We'll see what draw we get. I need to go and grab something, so I'll let Tom give us any thoughts he has on this matchup, and then I'll be back with the thing I need to grab.
Do you want to put yourself on mute so we don't hear you sobbing in the background? Maybe. It seems like I like the tactics to not put it all on the star players to try and score all your points and stuff. I have to take my hat off to that. It did seem like there was a lot of kind of bashing, quite a lot of fouling in the game. Oh, Phil's put it in the chat that it was a hollow victory. And he's also confirming, and also he's confirmed to be in the second tier now too. So we'll come to that with the other game. So both brothers are heading into tier 2 as well.
So Phil very kindly got me this T-shirt, which I don't know if you can see. It says I think I'll hand off to the owlbear on one side, and on the back it says that was the most stupid thing I've ever done in Blood Bowl.
I think there needs to be the caveat. That's the most stupid thing ever done in Blood Bowl to date.
So far.
Yeah.
So far.
But it was, it was what it was. I enjoyed giving it a go. And I very much enjoyed using Griff and Cindy. They're such an amazing combo. There's a reason Cindy is now a mega star in the new FAQ. Absolutely. So, really, really good fun. And I did probably throw away a victory, but Phil outplayed me in the second half, so he deserved the win off that basis. So. We'll come on to his games later on because, as he's mentioned in the chat, very key for how the group has turned out. So next up, we are going to match day 6, and we are going to the Inglorious Bastards versus Fetid Feet. Now, this, like 2 of our games, my dog is growling at me, so I'm going to try and get his attention. Like 2 of the games that we've got this week, Unfortunately, Nick has had to step away from the league just for a while to focus on some other things. So all the best to Nick. So I've stepped in to play his game. So on tour play, they look a little bit odd because we've had to sort of manually input the details. But I picked up his Nurgle to play this game against the Fetid Feet, and it was a really fun game actually. I would say that probably 14 out of 16 turns of this game had a big ball of Nurgle players in a mesh in the middle of the pitch, and it was difficult to tell whose Nurgle was whose, to be honest. It was very difficult to tell whose was whose. And there were lots of blocks and chain pushes and balls bouncing around and landing on here, there, and everywhere. It was absolute chaos. And I managed to take the lead in the first half, and the Fetid Feet and Luke managed to equalize in the second for a 1-1 draw. But it was absolute chaos and nonsense, this game, and really, really good fun. Nurgle, not a team I would choose to play, but absolutely one that I enjoyed giving a go. Tom, it's always difficult when you get matchups that are two of the identical team, because it's sort of, you're both good at the same thing, you're both bad at the same thing, and it can be difficult to sort of, what your weaknesses are, but so does your opponent. So it's sort of, it can be quite difficult to plan when you've got the same team matchup.
Yeah, I think Nurgle always interests me, because especially with these two teams you've got, because correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of random mutations in them. So even though you say that they're similar teams, they've got little added bonuses with some of their mutations. Did any of the mutations work better for you or better for Luke?
Going into this game, I think I had Ironhard Skin on one player. I didn't have too many going into this game, and they didn't really come into play, to be honest. I think the two arms, is it the two arms that let me just make sure I've got that right. Two heads, sorry. No, yeah, two heads. Extra arms, that's the one I mean. Extra arms. The extra arms on Luke's Nurgle did come into play because they helped with picking up the ball, which was really good. So yeah, I think he got a bit more use out of his than I did off mine. But yeah, you're right. Both teams look very different now because the random mutations really kind of throw things up. Scott, what do you think on this one?
Well, first of all, I'm going to give kudos and credit where it's due. So once again, Mr. Chris Cole, kudos to you, sir, for stepping in and playing on behalf of Nick. More importantly, for channeling the spirit of Nick, as Nick politely put in the chat. I remember reading this on Twitch, re-rolls are for pussies. So kudos for doing that as well, and being the sort of the Padawan to Nick's Jedi, if that's the way. Shout out to Luke as well, because he's come a long way in terms of the development, doing the team. We've got Wart the Pest to go. I just want to see a Nanny Wart showdown. That'd be a thing of beauty. As an Ad coach, I have to say this one made me laugh. One, to see a lump of mess in the middle of the pitch. It was like a cross just between ridiculous levels of politeness versus with a hefty mix of the Chuckle Brothers in there. To me, to you, no, please, you take it. No, to me, to you. And it was from an Edge coach, it's everything you dislike about the game, but it was funny to watch and it was very entertaining. So kudos on that. And I think it's been a good one as well. And I think it's another good lesson in terms of Luke's development as a coach, not just facing, Nurgle, but he's also been placing. He's obviously facing the opposite end of the spectrum with New Edge team in terms of gnomes as well. And he's facing the mighty Acredes and the Hudal Helion's Old World Alliance, who seem to have done quite well. And Tom's had enough already, so he decided to go. Never mind.
Yeah, Tom's just had to pop out. He'll be back shortly.
He's probably working on more material for his Netflix comedy show now.
He needs to get that joke written down so he doesn't miss it for the next one. You can't see on the manual input, but in the spirit of Nick, the only thing I took inducement-wise was 2 bribes. But sadly, I didn't get as much opportunity to use them as I wanted. But a very fun game. Luke's a great coach. And has really kind of grown and improved. And it was very much, it felt like the immovable force versus the unstoppable. What's the phrase? I don't know what it is. You probably know the phrase, Scott. You know what I mean.
Vaguely, but
it was really good. It was a great game either way. We'll jump onto the next game now. Luke, apologies if you've just missed us going over one of your game. We'll come to your second one shortly, and go watch us on YouTube afterwards and see it again. So we're going to go over to match day 2. We're going to the Golden Oldies kicking off their campaign against OTFC. Golden Oldies. A bit of background on the coach here. He has a Blood Bowl team that he's had for years and has just decided to pick them up and start playing it. This was his first game in a considerable length of time, or second game actually, because the first one was against the Vampires. So this was only second game in a long time against a very experienced coach. I'm getting blinded by my window I'm sat in front of now. I'll sort that out in a bit. And coming out of it with 3 casualties, so coming out with it with a point and with a lot of SPP. But ultimately, Scott, James, more experienced coach, coming out on top in this one.
Yeah, James did it well, didn't he? He knows how to play these ogres. A second season, a very healthy level of skills on their side as well. Went 1-0, and I thought then John came back, his human catcher coming back with a touchdown right on the next turn. So again, another 1-turn touchdown. I know James is in chat tonight. James, what happened there, mate? Were you being very generous, or was it a blitz or something exciting happened there as well in particular? That coming back very strongly. And again, number of casualties coming through as well, particularly from the ogres when they get into their stride. So good, solid win there for James. SPP across the board is pretty easy. 3 casualties each, which is nice to see. I suspect James would have been pleased to get that one out of the way and go into strong position in the league.
Yeah, it looks like 1-turn touchdowns are coming thick and fast this week.
I mean, they're the best way to get touchdowns. If you've never done it, you got to do it.
Says the man who tried to take an owlbear up the pitch.
Yeah. If Giants could throw owlbears, I would be tanking my team value and I would be going for that touchdown
that
every single time.
I think people would take that. But from your perspective, Chris, John's come in. He hasn't played in a while. He's picked up the Golden Oldies. Older Alliance, as we've seen, can be either very, very good, very, very bad. Obviously, the meta suggests they should be more very, very good and very, very bad. Sorry, enough conversations that way. So he's done very, very well indeed in terms of where he's gone from. If this was his second match, obviously he played former champion, Mr. John Reeder. Good evening, John, if you're driving home from work. Safe driving, everybody. It was a very, very good win. So do you want to go straight to the match against the Vamps? Or have you got anything else you want to talk about James and his ogres?
Old World Alliance versus Vampires, I didn't have on my list, but I think it's because it was a admin game. So let me just find it, because I want to make sure we cover it, because I think it was in this same period. Here they are. So it was a 2-1 win for the Vampires. This was one that we had to admin. And had to admit it because of some sort of tech difficulties. What did the vampires do against somebody who hasn't played the game in a long time? Well, they killed the halfling to start with. That was a decent introduction. But they also got a niggling injury on their Vargeist. So swings and roundabouts for John's team. But I think you guys would agree. John would have been happy with this result to help him bounce back from 2 tricky defeats in the start of the season, gives him a bit of a boost going into those next 2 games against James and Robert. Tom, our resident vampire expert, Old World. I don't know what kind of a challenge they pose because the vampires probably outstrength them pretty much across the pitch. They're more agile than them, they're stronger than them. They've probably got their number pretty much down.
Yeah, because again, I think John's got 2 vampire throwers and a blitzer, which are all strength 4. The runner, because I think he's only got a single runner in that team, is strength 3. It's interesting that the Vargeist, and I'd be interested to know about this with big guys, and maybe if you tune into New Dice Please, you might hear a series coming up about big guys or no big guys. But the Vargeist, to me, is very similar to the Yeti, I think. I don't know if it's an advantage or not to actually take it. So I've had no luck with it. I have no luck with vampires, full stop. But that's another matter. So it'd be interesting to see how well other people play with the big guy in the vampire team.
Fantastic plug, Tom. Well done. It's got better armor than the Yeti, but yeah, is it kind of? I don't overly rate the Yeti. I'm not a big fan of it. I guess it is beefier, and it's less likely to go down maybe with that armor, or less likely to be out for a long time. Scott, for your first game in 20 odd years at a game of Blood Bowl to come up against John and a vampire team, pretty difficult kind of intro into the game.
Very difficult, I think, would be a better way to describe it, Chris. You're up against vampires. They've got stronger than you. Yes, Bloodlust can impact. Bloodlust may not impact. Don't know if John's in chat or if anybody is in terms of how John is getting on with Bloodlust at this moment in time. He's obviously got the 4 re-rolls up his sleeve as well. So it was a challenge for John. So I think a 2-1 defeat is a very, very commendable score. Against that as well. Be very pleased with that myself. So, and you look at what John's doing, as Tom alluded to, in terms of upskilling those vampires. I can see obviously the Vargeist is out next match, but personally, when you've got a Vargeist, you're on a strength 5, plus you've got claws. So you're breaking armor on that 8, which really, really helps, especially when you come up against bloody lizard men and other things. So when you can only roll, actually for yours truly, when you can't even roll an 8, it doesn't really make a difference anyway. So you struggle past a 6 or a 7. But in terms of this, I think it's been a good start for John. I encourage him, like all our new coaches. You do get your down matches, you do get your good matches as well. But it's about making sure you come back. If you come into Blood Bowl to think you're going to win every match, unless your name is Tom Huns or Elliot, you're not going to really. Or actually even JD Clark at the moment. We all go through these swings and roundabouts, but keep going. There's a great community. Everybody will help. And the more you play, the better you become.
Yeah, and a big thanks to John for being very patient. And actually, thanks to, we said it earlier in the week, but thanks to all of our coaches for being so welcoming to all of our newer or sort of returning players, because it really does, really does make us sort of a welcoming group to come to. So yeah, thank you to everyone. We're going to jump onto the next game then, and Scott, I'm going to head straight back to you because this is in your group, this game. It is the Sid Saracens versus the Lustrian Legends, and like you said just then, Tom is on an amazing run of form.
Yeah, before I do that, I think John just commented in chat. In my game against him, the Vamps were very thirsty. So this is John Reader. I remember the Vargeist took one of my players and then punched the thrall off the pitch. That's what we like. That's what we like indeed. Yeah, we're talking here then in group popcorn. This is yours truly's groups as well. Tom's just firing absolutely at the moment on all cylinders, to use the sporting cliche. He's playing some very, very good. I was chatting on chat to, ironically, to Sam Smith, who's obviously the coach of the Double Oaks, when we saw this one coming through on tour play as well. And Simon did pick the big man as well. He did pick the Sentinel, the brutal blocker, to give him that extra strength. And then, of course, what does Tom do? He takes him off the pitch in turn one, just what you need to start your match as well. And when we saw it coming through, the amount of injuries, well, having your own halfling sent off doesn't help, because all of a sudden you're reduced in terms of your tactics. And if there is a coach you play who does not let you off the hook, Tom Huns is that coach. As soon as he sees an advantage, he's going to press home on it, and rightly so. Loads of injuries, loads of cash. And when it went 2-0 up, we were coming to himself and Sam that it did look painful. It really did for Simon. So first of all, kudos to Simon for coming back. He got the return touchdown to bring it back to 2-1. But even at that point, you thought, what's going to happen now with Tom and the Amazons? Is he going to come back to the 3-1? And he did as well. And we were chatting in Discord about it, and Simon was saying that, and Tom was saying as well, Simon just couldn't roll the dice. His dice that he was rolling against the Amazons was as bad as when I rolled the dice against them the week before. Wasn't getting the armor breaks, and when he was getting the armor breaks, wasn't getting the injuries as well. So it was a tough thing. Tom's positioning is exceptional. He's a very, very good coach. We saw it last year with the Vampires. He's coming back strongly now, doing it with his Amazons as well. And 4 wins on the bounce says it all, really. He's one of those coaches. We mentioned Robert earlier, but if you're looking at top 2 finish in your group and you're thinking, who do you want to avoid in the knockout of the in the next phase, Tom and Robert are going to be 2 atop of that list as well. And you've still got Nanny and Rich to make their bid for the playoff glory as well.
Tom, I'm going to come to you because I think, do you think the humans are suffering in this group? Because you're a human coach yourself this season. We know that the humans do everything okay. So you can kind of play different ways. Is the problem that they're coming up against 3 teams in their group that all do maybe one thing particularly well, and because they're doing that thing so well, it's kind of difficult for the humans to counter it, being a bit of a jack of all trades?
Yeah, because they've got they're playing against, clearly they're playing against Amazons. They've got Scott with his Wood Elves, and then you've got the Double Yoke Lizards, which again, majority of them are agile, aren't they? I know you've got the Lizards with a bit of bash in their side and everything like that, but you've got the skinks in there that are running around. It is a very difficult kind of situation. Playing humans, you almost got to play the opposite of what your team's doing. But then when on turn 1 you start losing players yourself, it starts to get very difficult, because it's like, hang about, Amazons are meant to be dodgy. They're not meant to be coming after me. And turn 2, suddenly get another blitzer out, so I'm 3 players down. Then turn 6, I'm 4 players down. So it's an interesting one with Amazons, because as Scott quite rightly says, Tom is playing these very, very strongly, just like Robert is. And it's almost as if these coaches really research their teams, understand their teams, but then push them to the limits, because you would naturally think, well, Amazons, they're not going to be up for the fight. They're going to be dodging around me, trying to using all their agility and scoring quickly. But he's clearly not playing them that way, well, as tour players showing. So it's an interesting one to watch.
It's interesting in this group as well. If you look at the Saracens as well, Simon has recruited another halfling. which suggests he is going to maybe look to do a few more throw-in shenanigans. Maybe he's taking the leaf out of the Chris Coe, if you pick it up, throw it about type plays as well, which is encouraging, not particularly fun when you're an opposition coach as well. But I know that he has, as well as having some dice, and we all get good dice, we all get bad dice. But Simon has struggled. He struggled against me as well, particularly with Bonehead. He had that, I think, 3 Bonehead fails against me as well, which all of a sudden is not in a good place, puts you behind the game. So, yeah, it's been a difficult one. I'm not going to say anything more about the group. I'm sure we'll come on to the group in about the next 10, 15 minutes. And just, I think this weekend is going to be the make or break for it in terms of who gets that second place.
Still a lot to play for in that group for the second spot. Looking at match day 6 now. And Tom, we're coming back to you, and we're coming back to your group. And we are looking at the Scythian Warriors versus the Agarthan Mewers. Second time these two play each other, and the same result comes from this one, a 3-0 win for the Norse team against the Amazons. We've got a coach here who's getting better with every game, who's got the ultimate kind of coaching team or teaching team with the players that he's practiced against, versus Leanne, who still hasn't played a lot and is still very much learning. So probably not too much of a surprise that Norse team comes out on top here.
Yeah, Jack's playing these Norse very, very well, as you say. He's coming from a Blood Bowl dynasty, really, isn't he? So he's got big shoes to fill, and he's clearly kind of doing his own to show that he's not a pushover. I don't know Leanne, so I believe it's her first, not only her first season, but it's actually quite a few. It's a new game to her completely. If I'm right, you may be able to correct me on that.
Yes, very new.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I'd be interested to kind of get her perspective on with the 2 stunty superstars. What she was expecting to get from that or achieve with that on that side of things. I think I've got Jack coming up this Saturday, so I'm not particularly looking forward to seeing all of this and suddenly looking at his team now with a Valkyrie with sure hands and shadowing. He's also got another Valkyrie with block and dodge now, and 13 SPP as well. So what on earth he's going to give me as a surprise coming down to that? I'm going to be worried. So yeah, he's definitely biding his time with this team, and again, I'm actually going to say that he's a bit like Robert. He's trying to keep himself quiet under that radar, but he's with these scores, he's starting to show his strength.
We're doing a good job this week of outing people who are trying to go under the radar. So before the end of the day, I think we'll have probably outed everyone. Scott, our league is a big learning curve, our league, because we've got so much sort of strong players. But it does mean that sort of once you get the hang of it, coaches do improve very quickly, which is why we've got such a competitive level. So Leanne shouldn't be downhearted by these results.
Nope. We've all been there, Leanne. We've all been, your first couple of games do feel very tough. It does feel, you are thrown in and you are at the deep end. As we've seen now, and as we've mentioned, we do a fantastic, group of coaches, a great community. So we do have we do offer coaches the support, how to learn, and you will learn fast. We do play quite a high level of Blood Bowl as well, from feedback we've got outside the store and outside the community. So all I'd encourage Leanne and Carl and everybody else who's new and playing and might be feeling a bit, oh, what am I doing? Keep going, and then think about, okay, how can I get better? Maybe, if you want to, think about these teams for season 8 as well. And even when you get to the end of the league, you still go into the knockout tournament. Maybe we should look at sponsorship, maybe a senior coach taking on the role of mantleship, to lead and to guide them Obviously not with Old World Alliance, but maybe other coaches we can ask.
Equally,
Yeah,
just to
no owl bears.
Yeah, equally, just to call it out there, on Discord, we do have a looking for a games channel. So you don't have to just stick to the league. If you want to get a few little friendlies in and you want to just try something out, put yourself, go on the Discord and see if there's always people out there looking for a game to try and practice some things or just have a good fun time.
Well, we'll jump to the next game then. We have got 8 games left. We're flying through. We're doing well, guys. We're doing well. And we're going to dive into match day 1. We're staying with this group and we're going to the Wolverhampton Shamblers versus the Agartha Newers. And the first time this season, I believe that the Agartha Newers have been stopped from getting a win. So very well done to Jane for holding them off and managing to get a draw out of this one. A interesting matchup here, Necromantic Horror versus Norse. Jane redrafting this Necromantic Horror team. So we know that she was very sort of patient and sensible with some of the skills. And if you look at some of these players she's got now, Ghoul Runner with Dodge and Block, Ghoul Runner with Dodge Block Sidestep, Werewolf with Wrestle and Tackle, a Flesh Golem with Guard and Strip Ball. She's got some interesting players there who can really cause a problem. Scott, these two teams they're quite a good matchup because they've both only really got the 2 players who are strength 4, assuming that the Yeti's not made it into that team yet.
Yeah.
And so positional wise, they're pretty well matched, really. Yeah, maybe not too surprising that we had a draw in this one. I know that they were a bit pushed for time at the end, but both players sort of playing well, and a draw maybe feels like that was what was coming.
I think so. It's very, very rare that you'll go through as a coach undefeated in a league, unless you're Tom Huns. So I think Jack has been on a good win streak with this one. Jane seems to be starting in the last couple of matches to be hitting her stride, really playing it. She did have a tough season last season. So just going back to the conversation we had a few minutes ago for those coaches, Jane is a great example. Last season, she was in the group of death for season 6, really challenging. Jane's come back, playing some good Blood Bowl as well. And this one, one there. We didn't talk. Are we going to come on to talk about the Amazons and Necro? Because I think we jumped around a bit there.
That is next on my list.
Cool. And I think this is really, Jane is really setting it up in terms of, this isn't Jack hasn't, he hasn't got that first place all sewn up, although he's looking very favourite. So for this match on paper, looked like a 1-1 draw. Jack gets the 2 casualties. They both get the 1 touchdown each as well. So I think they'd both be pretty pleased with that 1-1 draw. It sets and from the neutrals perspective, it sets up the group very, very nicely indeed.
Yeah, Tom, from your perspective, looking at this one, people seem to be getting results against Leanne. It's looking unlikely that she'll come out of this group in the top 2. Probably from your point of view, a draw from this one may be the best result you could have hoped for, because you're looking at wanting to get as many points from both of these teams as possible for your chances, and also wanting them to get as few points from each other as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say about Leanne, but I'm playing her on Thursday, so hold my beer and watch me. I can always, get a defeat from anything. But no, both these players, both coaches play an excellent game, and I know Scott always loves to see a bed sheet causing injuries. So it's good to see that there is, like you say, none of these divisions are a walk in the park for anyone, to be brutally honest. And unless you're Tom Huns, apparently, according to Scott. So it's the fact is that we've said it many times before. They're great teams to play. You can always redraft. So if you feel that your team is good, but they just haven't performed in this season, you can always redraft them. If they've got a couple of players with some good skills on them, this is what you can do with them. You can make a big difference.
Jack was taking a bit of a beating in this one, was getting a few players knocked out as the game went on. I think if they'd got their last 3 turns in, I think it could have gone either way with the kind of experience that both these coaches have now and the players that they have. So well done to both of them for this one. Let's go to the last game we've got in this particular group this week, which was, let's find it here. It is the Scythian Warriors versus Wolverhampton Shamblers. Jane played this game before she went on to play against the Argarth and Mewers. And will have been very happy with this 2-0 result here against the Amazons. Probably this game favoured Jane in a few ways, experience, but also Jane's had 2 seasons under her belt with Amazons, so she knows what they're good at. She knows what they struggle with, and played a strong game to make sure that she got the result here to put herself in that fight for those top 2 spots. Tom, you have also played Amazons in the past. How are they suited? We said that Norse and Necro quite well matched. Amazons are kind of the dodge version of the Norse, which are kind of the block version of Amazon. So again, do we have quite an even match on paper here with the Amazons and the Necro team?
Possibly, because clearly with the Amazons, you've got the Jaguar blockers, which are strength 4 with dodge as well, which are quite useful little tools. And equally with the blitzers, I've yet to see anyone use that hit and run to any great effect. It's one of those skills that goes a bit forgotten, a bit like with the vampires with Hypnogaze. The amount of times I've seen other people play vampires, and I keep wondering, oh, use Hypnogaze there and you can nip through, and it doesn't, and they don't. And it's the same with the hit and run. I think it's a bit of an underused and underappreciated skill. So maybe that's something that Leanne might want to try and think about. Maybe, I don't know, maybe she's already been using it. But equally, there has been some unfortunate situations in this one straight away with injuries happening in the first half. Our friend and yours, poor old Acorn, being badly hurt in turn 10. So it's an interesting one to see on the actual tour play. And again, I'm really looking forward to playing both Leanne and Jane and Jack again.
It was Acorn's performance in this one was they were put on the pitch for the second half. They tried they did 3 or 4 dodges and a couple of rushes to get a 2 dice uphill, and then they were badly hurt as a result of it. So it was Acorn doing what Acorn can do best, which is going for the block and inevitably failing it. Scott, Jane will be very happy with this win. Give her season a bit of a boost here. It's going to be pretty. I think it is going to be pretty tight. Jack's looking pretty good for top spot in this group, but I think it is going to be tight between Jane and Tom for second place here. Games like this one, if you've got someone in your group who maybe people are getting the results again, does it kind of come down to who gets the best results against that player? Or do we think that the next game against Tom and Jane is going to be the clincher for second place here?
Well, first of all, when you get games like this, I think to look at them and think this is not so much am I going to win, but how much am I going to win by? That is so that's just a knuckle tripwire waiting for you to, as a coach. I think Jane did well, especially not just, I love to see the mighty Acorn brought onto a pitch. I think he's fantastic. But the mighty Zug making a guest appearance as well, that's not pretty. So if you think you're facing a team who can go dodge, 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 dodge everywhere, or the 3+ and the reroll, it's looking good. Now, one of the things I don't know is how has Leanne been faring with dodge? Because I did overhear a bit on the commentary of this match streaming next door to this, and it sounds like Leanne's luck with dodge hasn't been as good as I know Tom's been having. I don't think I've seen him fail a dodge actually on a reroll. So I think for Jane to do this, it was one of the potential banana skins. Had to do, keep it a solid performance. Fenris, the werewolf, is one who is definitely going to be on the bounty board. It would be almost rude not to. And I also think with Acorn the Squirrel, I think if people injure him and take him off, I think there needs to be an addition to his rules so that if you do injure the Squirrel, he rips your face off and takes that player out with him as well. I think that would just be thematically a thing of beauty. Yes.
He's going to take you nuts, but yeah.
You need to write that down. This is just on fire.
Put that one down for the stand-up routine.
Tell
That's the
you
second
what.
one.
That's season 2 all there on its own here for you, Tom. So I think for Jane, it's set up, and you did touch upon where it's going to go for. I think Jack is looking confident. I wouldn't say top at the moment, but for one of the top 2 to progress to the knockout, the top championship and a knockout. Well, it depends on how Tom here does. You've also got the Yeti to face as well when you play Jack on the weekend. So are you going to be now talking about the old cliche, one match at a time? You can only play the team in front of you, Tom.
Well, you talk about like the siders and stuff. It's that the game that we've just talked about, the 1-1 draw between Jack and Jane. That could be the one that's kind of got Jane to that second position, to be brutally honest, because like you say, Jack's got a full strength team. I'm down a player or 2 players next game, which I'm playing against Leanne on Thursday, and then I'm playing Jack on Saturday morning. So it will be interesting to see. He has got a very well skilled team. I will probably be having to buy another thrower after Leanne's game, because that's my tradition now, that every game I lose my thrower. So I'll have a brand new thrower on that game. So it'll be an interesting couple of games. And then I believe we've got a little bit of a gap because of people having things going on that they can't do regular games. So hopefully we can get our division wrapped up by the end of June, but there might be some gaps in our division by the sounds of things.
James in the chat. James just said that Leanne was being very protective sort of in the beginning of the game, loosened up a bit as the game went on, and she's going to get some results soon. So looking positive.
So just to finish, Tom, just put you on the spot for one last bit then. At the beginning of the season, you said your goal was to win 2 matches. Yep. Is that still your goal, or is a bit of you thinking, I might be able to progress here?
Oh, no, I'm never that confident in it. I'm just still going to be happy if I win 2 matches. And let's be honest here, I've only won 1 so far.
Well, I don't know if you can hear my dogs barking, but that's because my Tesco delivery has just turned up. So I'm going to leave you chaps to talk about Nurgle versus Gnomes, and I'm going to go and get my weekly shopping. So I'll be back shortly, but talk about the Gnomes.
Okay, so we're talking about Luke and his fetid feet. That needs to be trademarked, Luke. So if you are listening, you need to get onto that straight away. Against John and the Big Critters. So I believe this is John's 2nd match of the tournament. This was his 3rd match of the tournament. So he'd already won against Luke's fetid feet 1-0 on his first match. Then he followed it up with a 1-0 loss to Coach Creedies and the Hudor Helions before coming into face Nurgle. So Nurgle here, Luke coming off the back of that 1-1 draw. So before we start this, what was your expectation of this one, Tom? You've got Nurgle, very, very bashy, squishy, pile it up all into the middle of the pitch, versus the Gnomes, who seem to a bit of an interesting one this season, first season in the division. What was your thoughts, and did it live up to your expectations?
Yeah, so I think the thing with Gnomes is I don't think anyone quite grasps what their strengths are, or what their, what the skills and what the little tricks can do. I was expecting like it was going to be an interesting one on the basis that yes, you've got some fast, dodgy little animals running around the pitch, and then just disturbing presence everywhere kind of thing. So I was kind of thinking that Nurgle were going to take it, and then straight away Wart, good old Wart comes in and just takes out Acorn straight away on turn 1. But then you've got this Woodland Fox, and the Woodland Fox is an interesting one because it's got that skill, hasn't it, that it won't let the ball go unless you bash it down. So you kind of almost got a guaranteed scorer there, haven't you, on that side of things?
Yeah.
So.
No, you do. You've got two very agile star players. Acorn is Acorn. He's either going to take people out in spectacular fashion or he'll take himself out, which is what we love about him. But you've also got Rohanna Forestfoots, who's obviously got some very, very powerful attributes there. So going into the match, Wart, as you said, starts nicely. And you think if Luke keeps it tight with his pitch, it would be a long. But as soon as you lose Acorn, as soon as then by turn 6 you've lost Rowena as well, you've got a Gnome Illusionist badly hurt, and it just felt the momentum started to change. And all of a sudden, Luke showed really, really good stuff coming from that 1-0 down. The numbers game starts to play in his favor as well. And what was good to see, though, in terms of the gnomes, Tree starting to do what Tree's starting to do. They get a completion, in terms of throw. Unfortunately, it looks like the lineman didn't quite make it, but can't have everything. So it did feel that they were coming back into it as well, and then Luke sort of just took it away from them. And if we look at the amount of casualties that went through, I mean, you've got 21 SPP, 9 casualties as well, so 18 SPP just from beating people up. That's always a good day at the office, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can't take that away from you. You've been absolutely pounding these little gnomes into the ground, left, right, and centre by the looks of things.
But as well, John, just kudos to John as well, doing well. And John is 12th in the United Kingdom for Gnome, 39th overall on tour play. I don't know how many Gnome players there are at the moment, but it seems all our Gnome coaches are doing quite well in that instance as well. So again, it is probably a learning curve for the Gnomes, probably a learning curve for everybody on that side of it as well, because it just feels at the moment each time that Gnomes are going to take a match, then it doesn't take a lot before the momentum changes. We saw it in the earlier match, with Dave and Rich, and Nanny being the catalyst as well there. And it seems as much as Nanny was the catalyst in her match, then a good old Wart and Hammertoe, who's the other one who's coming up on the sides. And they seem to be really, really making a difference. So again, a really good match from Luke. So it seems to be cemented. Also, the turn 8 blow to throw was just so lucky. Yeah, it all does as well. So Luke's looking like.
Love to see a blow to throw. Absolutely beautiful stuff. I've got frozen. I've got everything out from the lovely Tesco delivery man. I now need to put some stuff in the freezer in the fridge. Are you guys ready to go on to the next one?
Yep.
Perfect. I'm going to leave you with World's Edge Berserkers versus the Toxin Runners. The only thing I'll say before I leave it to you and go and fill my freezer with food is dwarves not being dwarfs yet again.
Yes, agree.
A dwarf, a fantastic successful throw by the Skaven team, and a dwarf leaping into the air to get a 6-up interception to catch the ball and then retain it. Absolutely phenomenal. And it's yet again dwarves not being dwarves, which I love. I think it's great. Right, yeah. That's me done on this one. Leaving you guys to it yet again.
Cool. I'll jump in if I might, Tom, because I hold my hand up for this one, and Jamie, I take full responsibility. Not just because I backed Graham at the beginning of the season, because I'm a bit of a lover rat team. But I was asked at the beginning of this stream. It is available already if you want to go watch it on YouTube, guys, to see that incredible intercept. But I was asked, what did I think? And I thought with the Death Roller as well, with the Dwarves having the drive, that it really was going to be a match where the Dwarves walked off with maybe a new fur coat of rat skin coming out there as well. But Graham played very well. It was a lot of fun to watch in it. There was a lot of YOLO activations. It was very much fun to watch, and it was interesting to watch. Almost Jamie seemed to be, but maybe a bit overly cautious in terms of the threat that the gutter runners and the Skaven were posing. And Graham, as we said, just went for it. He went for it. He's got Cannoneer on his thrower. He went for the long bomb throw. He took it on a 5-up, which was great to see as well. And then just because he had to go for a natural 6-up interception, the dwarf player, obviously not as stunty as they make out, maybe he was an ogre kneeling down or something, but leapt like a salmon and took that ball with a 6-up and then caught it with a 4-up in terms of his edge as well. So it was an absolutely thing. So at that point, you thought, okay, where's this going to go? And then the rats did what the rats do best. If they get an opportunity, they will take it. And yeah, if you look at it, you go from the situation where the death roller is absolutely knocking them all over the pitch. I think at one point they were down to 6 or 7 rats on the pitch. They're losing the linesman, but most importantly, they're keeping those gutter runners. And as soon as you get those gutter runners, you know, they're scoring on turn 6, 2 turns later on turn 8. So all of a sudden you're 2-0 down at half time. And then it felt that, yeah, the Dwarves were going for it. And whilst the Dwarves were going up the pitch and still giving it and still taking out casualties, they weren't getting rid of the gutter runners. There were a lot of pushes in terms of the results for the, for the blitzes and for the dices and everything. I wasn't getting the armor breaks as well, which is dangerous against dwarves. So it was dwarfs not being dwarfs, but almost Skaven being overly Skaven on steroids, as it were. And if you look at it, as soon as they got back on turn 12 to 3-1 down with the blitzer, who had to take, took a long time getting up that pitch as dwarves do. All of a sudden, those Skaven are back. 1 turn later, turn 14 is 4-1. Thank you very much. And it really opens up this group when we look at it before. So when you look at this, Tom, would you prefer on this form to play Skaven or Dwarves or neither?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I was just having a quick look at the Toxic Runners, and although, yes, fantastic result for them, obviously playing out their skin kind of thing, but looking at their current lineup now, they've got quite a lot of like knockdowns on the armor value and the agility, in fact, on some of these players. So a kind of a question to you, being the Skaven super coach you are, would you start with the fact that you've got a gutter runner with only armor value 7? Would you replace it? And equally, you've got a couple of line. In fact, you've got a line rat with armor value 7 as well, and also another line rat with agility 4.
The lineman, no, I wouldn't worry about it as well. And the gutter runner, nah, it's on a 7. He's still got that big movement of 9. He's still got dodge in there. The key thing, if you look at the other 3 gutter runners, block 2 heads, block strip ball, block on its own. That's really dirty. If you're going in for 2 dice uphill with block, dodge, and strip ball, that's not a bad one to have. And just a shout out, because Graham, he had a bit of a challenging season last season, season 6. He's redrafted, he's come on. So just to show all the other coaches as well, just you might have some tough times, but then all of a sudden your team clicks and you've got a 4-1 win under your belt. So he's done well in terms of, if you look at his last 4 matches in the league, Graham, on that 4-1. Okay, he lost to Justin and the Halflings. He took a 2-2 draw against our reigning champion, Elliot, and obviously he finished last year with the 3-1 against JD and his Norse as well. So I think he's in a real good place. The one thing I'm itching for him to get, that sounds a bit dodgy, just like Scott in his showers. Yeah, he needs a Roger. just wants to have a roger in there, really, to give him that strength 5. He does. Chris Coe, you know nothing. That's let's not go there. But yeah, I think he needs a roger. And then it'd be a thing of beauty. It really would be.
I was in store when this game was happening, and when I heard the incredible interception, I just assumed that this was going to go the Dwarfs' way. The next time I went to the table, it was 2-0 to the Rats. So an incredible turnaround on this one. Yet again, my dogs don't want to give me peace and quiet today, so I'm going to sort them out. We're going to jump to match day 6, and we're going to the Inglorious Bastards versus the Fetish Fit. This was yet another admin one. No, not Fetish Feed. That's the wrong game. It is the Inglorious Bastards versus the Feudal Hellions. That's the one we want. We've got our days mixed up. Let me just find this fixture. Here it is. 2-1 victory for the Hellions. I made this difficult for Scott, and Scott also made this difficult for himself on this one. The Nurgle team got off to a very good start. Scott was reliant on them failing a pickup, failing a handoff, failing a pickup, failing a handoff, failing a pass, and not getting the ball away, and had committed too heavy to one side, which allowed the Nurgle to score. Hellions then well protected the catcher, got the ball free and round to level the game. And then came the part where the Hellions decided to make their life difficult and forget that their catcher had sidestep and allowed me to surf them off the pitch. I didn't manage to claim the bounty on that catcher. I did try 2 or 3 times. And I know Scott was very frustrated that he used up 2 rerolls recovering to get his second touchdown when he could have actually just sidestepped and not actually been surfed. But took a 2-1 lead, and then the Nurgle struggled. Well, Nurgle had a good chance of scoring and failed a 2-dice blitz, getting knocked down, lost the ball, and then couldn't get back in the game after that point. But a solid Nurgle performance, and probably Old World, I think Scott would agree, probably got away with this one.
Question for you, Chris. You obviously had a dead Pesticle, Gash. Yep. Can you confirm, was that death caused by the Halfling Hopeful? Or can you confirm it was Angus Brunch? Can you confirm it was? Because that would have been another thing of beauty.
You know what? I think it was.
Ah, sweet.
And not only it was, I think that was the 2-dice uphill the 2 dice that I failed. Yeah. And the Halfling. Yeah.
Creedy's making some comments up and at him, bless him. Very difficult. Frustrated was an understatement. Totally got away with it. He had 3 deaths, and yes, it was. Oh, and he regened the other 2 deaths.
Yeah. So the Rot Spawn on this one nearly out. Nearly died, but managed to regen back into the game. So really quite. I'm glad that this team is intact coming out of this one to a degree. Got some good skills on it for I've got 2 games against Gnomes left with this team, which will be good fun. But that some of those players on that Old World team are very good and very difficult to stop. And it was always going to be a challenge. But I think we did our team proud, even if we didn't come away with the result.
Very good, very good indeed. So, has this in any way? We talked about the meta for April with regards to the Old World Alliance. Scott has shown that, okay, you might have a few moments and get very frustrated, but you can still get the results. Has this just confirmed for you that you're never going to play them again, Chris? Has it put the nail in the coffin for you, or is there still maybe a glimmer of hope?
Why would I? What have they given me?
Dreams, memories, invaluable experiences and life skills.
I don't think I'll play them again. Maybe they'll come out for some friendly games, but even Scott doesn't want to
Even
play them
Scott,
again.
I'm never playing OWA again.
Like, I don't think I will. I just don't see the point. I think the owlbear will maybe turn, the owlbear that's currently ogre will maybe turn into an owlbear that's a yeti, and maybe we'll rebrand the Egg4 owlbears to being a Norse team, and we'll drop this old world nonsense. That's probably the way that we'll go with it.
Maybe we should make that another a charity stretch goal. That if we reach a certain target, both Scott and Chris will redraft their old world teams for next season.
As
What would it take, Chris?
As head of the league charity commission, there is no amount of money.
Fair enough.
It was a close game, and it was good fun. I don't think it's not made me want to play Old World more. I'm still not thinking Nurgle are a team that really suit me, but they are a good laugh and do pose some interesting problems, especially against a team with throw teammate. You can line up all that disturbing presence and make that really difficult. Having said that, the tree did get a perfect pass, even with about 5 disturbing presence around it, and did manage to get. But I think the halfling crash landed, so didn't get the completion for it. But an entertaining game nonetheless. Right, we will move on. We've got 3 games left. We're going to get through this. We're going to fly through these 3 games. Match day 6. We are on the Doombringers versus the Knights of Cerulean. And this was JD doing what JD has done very well this season. JD's having a phenomenal season. I hope he does realize how good a season he's having. Another very convincing result here. JD with a bit more experience than Phil, and I think there's an element of experience, but also an element of Phil's dice just struggling to break armor and give him any sort of person advantage here. Whereas JD's dice were very much getting through the armor when they needed to, and coming away with a decent amount of casualties. He's coming away from this game with 2 casualties. I think there were probably lots of knockouts there as well. He's coming away with a clean sheet. He's coming away with a bonus point for 3 touchdowns. In the battle that JD has in his, he's really cemented his position, and I think he has guaranteed himself top 2 with this result.
Absolutely, I think this Dark Elf team really suits JD. He's really been just racking up the points with it and having a good laugh by the sounds of things. Most at his opponent's expense by the looks of things, by the scores.
Yeah, totally agree. If you look at his, JD's really, it seems to be a player finds their team, and I think this has definitely been JD, much more than the Norse were last year. You look at how he's upskilled them already, and yes, it's all been, apart from one block, it's all been, rolled. So having Dauntless on an Assassin, Sure Feet with Dump Off is lovely to have on a Ghost Runner as well. Diving Casualty, block, tackle, and kick on that bloody Witch Elf. It's one of those, we'd all love to have that particular skill set on any one of the players in our teams. So kudos to Scott. That's a Freudian slip. Kudos to JD. He's done an exceptional job there as well. He came back because, of course, this was a rematch when he lost 1-0 to Phil 2 matches prior to this. So, yeah, great stuff. Well done, JD. It'd be interesting how the draw goes for the knockout stages for you as well. Question is that going to influence your style over the last match I think you've got, or are you going to just go for it and stay in the vein that you've always been in at the moment? So good luck to that. And obviously Phil joining you there, Chris, in the conference knockout as well. As you said, he sounds like he had a bit of a rough day at the office with the dice as well.
And I think we've had this with groups before, and I think we had this a couple of years ago when we didn't have wildcards, and this season again we don't have wildcards. And while we do have the sort of knockout tournament, obviously everyone wants to get top 2, and Phil's finishing 3rd place on 11 points, which is a high 3rd place finishing position. And when we don't have, when we don't have wild cards, it can feel quite harsh to kind of get a good points tally, get some good results, and miss out on that basis. But I think he's got a strong team there that could really could get him far against the right opponents in the kind of conference playoff. We'll go to his next game, which was played after this one, which was a 2-0 loss against Andy's team. This was the game that put Andy ahead of him and cemented his position in third place. Andy now giving himself a bit of a springboard. Andy's got to play myself and JD. And if he gets some good results in those two games, he can maybe take the top spot. But JD doesn't need to worry too much about that because he's guaranteed top 2 anyway. So he's going through to that playoff. So Andy, a very different character in this group to everybody else. Andy, every game against Andy is very entertaining. The enthusiasm the man has when things go wrong is absolutely phenomenal, and it's an absolute credit to him. And I've watching Andy in previous seasons. Andy always. I feel like last season he had kind of a slow start and then had a really good sort of end run to his group stage. And I feel like he's doing the same thing again. I don't know whether his start was sort of, his game against Phil in the first game was a lot closer and losing to JD, but he then got a win against me. He's got another win against Phil. I think he will continue to build that. I think it's going to be close between him and JD as to who takes top spot. Tom, if you had to give someone top spot out of the Nurgle team or the Dark Elves, who do you think is taking it in this group?
Oh, I have to say it would probably be the Dark Elves. They like we've just said, it is where a coach has just gelled with a team and has just been playing outstandingly with them. Both skill and dice have kind of really springboarded that team to, in my opinion, to the top spot. But not to take it away from anyone in this division, but looking at this particular game against Khorne versus Nurgle on this one, it really just looks like the ref had a keen eye straight away against the Khorne, with fouls going in and instantly being sent off straight away. So I'm assuming there's double dices being rolled multiple times there to get people out. And then we all know when you're down to a number of kind of lesser players and some of your key players are out, you start to lose momentum, and that's when other teams can really dominate. But it's been really interesting to see Nurgle on this, because before this season, I think last season we only had one Nurgle team in the whole season, and it was always very much said that it's a slow team and you'd be lucky to get one touchdown with the team. But hats off to these Nurgle coaches. They've been playing really, really well.
Yeah, and I think Scott almost set a precedent last season where other than 2 chosen blocks, it's all random mutations, and the kind of the all or nothing that gives you in the kind of bizarre opponent that you face when you face a Nurgle with all mutations is incredible. Scott, just a last word then on Phil. I know he'll be disappointed to have had 2 losses today, but he has got a strong team there to take forward. He has, I think, arguably, this has been one of the toughest groups with sort of similar ability levels. Coaches who are all coaches continuing to improve. I think it may not be the group of death that we saw last season, but I think to come out of it with his points total that he has and against the opponents that he's had, it's still been it's been a tough group to come out of, and it's still been a good performance.
I think Phil's done very well indeed. He's built on last year. I think you could argue maybe he's been a bit unlucky on a couple of his skills, especially shadowing on his Bloodborne. Not the best. Some of the other ones, he's got 2 heads on the Khorne, extra arms on the other Khorne, block and tackle. It feels that it feels on paper that this is a stronger team. So it does suggest that maybe the dice has really been against Phil, particularly this season. And where the other teams have had the breaks, as Tom mentioned, 2 sendings off against Nurgle. JD plays, ridiculously well in his match as well. So I thought, Phil's been very unlucky on this one in terms of these guys as well. Still got, fantastic looking ends on Phil, if there's any commiseration. So hopefully he'll come back strong as well.
Be interesting. There's 2 seasons for those Corn team now. So will we see a different team from Phil in season 3? I've got in my head, I think I know who it might be, but I won't speculate just yet. We'll see how this Corn team get on in the playoffs.
We're season 8, so it's the season of Corn.
Yeah, so will they come back for the season 8? That will be the thing. We've got 1 game left to do. Game 18 of the week. We have really plowed through it today. And game 18 of the week, I mean, it's a great one to finish on. It is it game 18? Let's have a look. It might not be game 18. Maybe it is game 18, if I can find it. Oh, I can't find it. Where is it?
Well, we started with the Flamingos. We're finishing with the Flamingos.
That's it. There we are. Flamingos versus Buffalo Biggins in what we are pretty sure is our first pitch clear of the season. An incredible bounce back from 2 tricky games from Harrison to get 5 casualties here, but it wasn't plain sailing. It wasn't sort of simple from the beginning. He did go 1-0 down, but what did he pay for that 1-0? Well, Dumb is dead, and so is Piz. So that's an incredible run. And a note on Piz as well. He was 1 SPP away from a stat increase. He got that 1 SPP with his turn 1 completion, and then he's dead by turn 2. Absolutely. I feel like just that sums up the kind of the feeling you get from this Goblin team and the nonsense in there. It's almost the perfect end for Piz, really. Scott, Harrison bouncing back from some difficult games, maybe hopefully can use this as a bit of a springboard to get the season going.
Yep, I think he's had has a tough start to the season. He lost to the Flamingos and Scott. He lost to Dave and Dead Star Belgrade, so 2 difficult ones. So to come back with a win, doesn't matter the score. He's got a win on a bonus. He's got the pitch clearance as well. Probably Harrison might have liked the 3rd touchdown instead of the pitch clearance, just to give him the extra points in the league. But he's again just reminded people in that league it's not over yet. There is a long, there is several more matches to go, and it's going to be very interesting. It just feels that this typifies where we are in the season. We've just moved through the halfway stage now. Some people are almost, just 1 or 2 matches left to go. So it feels that next weekend, this weekend coming and the weekend after, this is where the money is made, really, at the cutting edge of the season. And throw in any other sporting cliche memes you want to do at this point.
It has kind of blown things open a little bit. Goblins have played a lot more games in this group. Harrison's still got 3 games left and will be taking 4 points from this one. Tom, do we think it's going to be a pretty tight battle? Have we got another situation in this group a bit like we had in mind where we're going to get to the end of it and we're probably going to have 3 very high scoring teams on the board here, all kind of vying for those places? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, I think so. This is a redrafted Orc team, and I played against it, and it got far. Let's be honest, in the last season. So I think we haven't seen the last of them. I know it was a bit of a duff start, unfortunately, for Harrison with his team, but I think he's now picking up momentum and taking this win, and a bit of a revenge time after that 1-0 loss against the Flamingos last time. I think old scores have been settled with this game.
Definitely, definitely, and I think it has sort of put a spanner in the works for everyone's plans in this group. It'll be interesting to see how this one comes about and what happens here. Our first pitch clear, I guess, Orcs versus Goblins has pitch clear written all over it. Really, when you think about it, it's the sort of game where we should be getting pitch clears. So well done to Harrison for giving us our first one of the season. Scott's team having a few players down, a couple of players, or one player is going to be missing next game. A big loss to lose a player that was about to get an awful lot of either a stat increase or an awful lot of skills. That is going to hurt, but we've seen it before with Scott. He will build up another goblin to be his star. Sek is still in there, and someone needs to take that boy down because he's far too dangerous. So whichever one of these two, if one of these two doesn't make it out of this group, they're going to absolutely storm the conference for sure. Right. Let's dive into the groups then. We're coming to near the end of our time. Let's dive through the groups. So Orchidas, Argarth and Mewers sitting nicely at the top of that group. Very close for second place there. City Warriors yet to get a win, sitting at the bottom. Bloodwiser, Hellions all but have confirmed their place in the top two. Fetish, actually have confirmed their place in the top two. Fetish Feet look pretty sure for second place there. Big Critters are going to need 12 points pretty much from their next game to get them off there. They're going to need 2 6-pointers. So difficult for them to do, but we'll see whether they can pull it off. Pustard sitting at the bottom there. Chaos Cola, just the one game this week in that group has left it very, very tight. 9-6-5-5 on the points there after 3 games played. I think still any two of those teams in that group can come out of there. That's incredibly close. McMurtry's Draystone Defenders still sit at the top, even though they've had that loss. Riotous Rams, 5 points from one game is a very strong start for them. Waldemere Wasps and Sir Honkington's Folly still yet to get a win, but not many games played there. Nesquik, Graveyard Groovers sitting nicely at the top. OTFC just behind them. John with his win catching up to the top two there, and Golden Oldies with their 2 losses at the bottom. The group that we said is going to be very tight. Flamingos 13, Dead Star Belgrave 12. Harrison with his win puts him on 4. He's still got some catching up to do, but some good results could launch him up there. So I don't think that group is decided on that orientation at all. Spike Magazine, our first group that is decided. Doombringers and Circus Fantasia both qualified for the Champions League. Gilded Knights of Cerulean and Eggfort Owlbears both going through into the conference. Andy with 2 games left to play that will decide whether he finishes top and whether the Owlbears can, I don't know, scrounge some hope from a last win. We'll see. Popcorn Tom looking very comfortable at the top there. I think he's going to be very difficult to catch, but I think there's all to play for there for second place between the Double Yolks, the Atomic Cherry Bombs, and Sid Saracens. Any of those 3 with the number of points there could make a break and get second place. Who is our player of the week, gentlemen?
Just to give you something to hold on to, just because it was just funny. I'm not going to go for the owlbear. I think I've got to go for the dwarf, just because if you're going to take out a 6+ intercept, I don't have his name written down, but for Jamie, going to go for the dwarf, and that's going to be my game of the week as well. Dwarf versus Skaven. Totally not what I was expecting. Complete reversal. So yeah, that was my game of the week as well. Tom.
I think it would be a kind of a little memorial to Piz. The fact that he actually got all these points only to be squashed into the ground. It has to be the most goblin thing to do.
Player of the week for me is Sappy, Tree Man. In pile driver, armbar, multiple block, guard. Getting some good casualties against the Riotous Rams. For me, he held that team up and did an amazing job. I've got to give him my my player of the week. And I think as far as games of the week go, I think I'm also going 4-1 to the Rats, just because from where I was stood, I was fully expecting to go over to the table and be told it was 1-0 to the Dwarfs, and then I found out it was 2-0 to the Rats, and it only got worse from there. It was an unexpected turnaround, and I love it for that reason. So absolutely phenomenal. Are we picking a bounty of the week, gentlemen? And who do we think that is?
Well, I've got 2 nominations: Fenris the Wolf from for Jane and the Wolverhamptons. Also, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Sudodia or whatever her name is, but the slightly frustrating thrower for Mr. Tom Huns and the Lustrian Legends.
Tom, what do we think?
I think I might choose Wart again. He's seriously racking up points and becoming a bit of a nanny contender for the future.
I think my vote is going to be Widowmaker the Assassin. An incredible game against the Corn team today. A touchdown, sadly got a injury en route, but did manage to get a touchdown and took MVP away. Already got a good number of skills. And Widowmaker's currently got sure feet, tackle, frenzy, as well as shadowing and stab that it comes with normally. We're not going to see it in the last game, but come playoffs, that's going to be a nasty thing to come up against. Fantastic. That is our games for the day. 18 games. Thank you very much for everyone for bearing with us. That was an absolute marathon. Well done, everyone, for getting their games in. It was absolutely fantastic to see so many games being played this week and have so many to cover. We will be back next week to go over more games. We'll bring you more live games this week. We'll have another edition of New Dice Please coming on Thursday. So much stuff coming from you, coming from us to you this week. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and we will see you next time.